let's keep this train going here. Lesson 2, now that we've covered the mindset and you understand why your financial life is the way it is, as well as who has the biggest impact in your life on it, maybe your partners, maybe your parents, maybe your friends, you can start to understand why you have the habits you have, and understand that also it's not your fault, because a lot of times we subconsciously learn things that we don't intend to. And so now we get that, we can actually start with the technicals. How do we start planning a budget that works for you? So I'm going to introduce this rule that's worked many times over. It's not my concept, but I love teaching it and I use this personally. I've adapted mine slightly, but for the most part, it's the same type of strategy. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. So the rule is basically a way to organize your money without feeling restricted. You're balancing and paying yourself, as well as covering essentials and savings. It's as easy as it seems here. 50% for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for savings and debt. Ideally debt first. But you're going to adjust the percentages as needed, but keep the core framework of your needs being about 50%, right? Maybe you're doing a little more here, a little less here, or vice versa, but you want to have this aspect. And it creates balance and flexibility. And honestly, a lot of times you use it backwards to kind of define itself. So if your needs are maybe 70% of your budget, can you scale back your needs so you can have a little bit more pleasure? Or maybe, your 50% wants, can you scale that back to create a little bit more savings? This is kind of how you get a good pulse. First, start by identifying where you're at with this. And in order to do that, we need to start tracking our goals. So I would recommend you invest in apps. I use Monarch. It's a great one. You have to pay for it though. You can use You Need a Budget. You can use Mint. Credit Karma, I think, has some sort of, or NerdWallet has good options for that. It just allows you to categorize expenses, right? It links your bank accounts and it can identify as transactions come in and what you identify with them and what category they are. Over time, it'll automatically recognize them to be different levels. So you don't have to physically write down, this was transportation or gas. It'll do that over time as it gets to know you. So I'd really recommend, you invest in that. Not if you don't have any money, but maybe when you start saving some at the beginning. A spreadsheet's going to be an easy, free way to do it too. Just put the date in one column, expense, amount, and category. And then you can do sum equals sum if, and if the category is equal to, auto or whatever it's going to be. Or you can just, hand in a calculator, you can add up, for all the categories at the end. You can do like a drop-down menu for this or whatever you want to do, but customize it as much as you'd like. At the end of each work week, add up your expenses in the major categories. For example, maybe you have $200 to your phone bill and food, maybe $120 to subscriptions and recreation, $80 to a credit card or debts that you had to pay. This would be an example of the 50-30-20, right? Because it equals $400, but it's split up 50, 30%, 20%. So again, the order priority for this, for 50-30-20, needs, debts, wants. So 50-30-20, it goes in order of like the value, but in reality, you should prioritize it like this. You need to live. You need to have a space. You need food. But then you need to get out of debt, because debt is basically, as we'll talk about later, some sort of modern slavery. So in order to check progress, you need to add up the monthly amounts on the first day of the month, right? That's the easiest way to get a general sense. Tracking things by month, right? Most of your bills or credit cards are for each month, so that's the best way to keep the medium-term pulse after you've done the daily check-ins. So answer these questions every month. When you've added up everything for each day over the course of the month, are you still following 50-30-20? Or maybe on the larger macro trend here versus day-to-day, maybe you have a huge offset. Maybe it's 45% wants instead of 30. And so you can start making adjustments based on that. But again, like checking your bank account, getting that pulse by doing it regularly is your first step. But you're probably not doing the best right now. In what ways did you most severely shift away, and in what category? Because I'm going to tell you, most of the time, if it's wants, that's the biggest sign of a problem. If it's needs, you can scale it back a little bit. Maybe it's okay to splurge at times, have a little nicer apartment if you're not going to be in the hood, right, or high crime areas. But wants are the biggest things you're going to have to reduce if it's over. And so I would only recommend really going down with wants. Is this similar to last month, and in what ways? Did you trend over in wants, and are you still trending over, or did it even increase from that? Paying more attention to that is how you get that sense of what to correct. What do you need to change, the big question is, to get closer to 50-30-20, or somewhere where it's even more beneficial? So in order to shift the goal, right, I like this picture of a donut because it's breaking down and it looks cool. As you master your budget, you may not need the exact same balance anymore. It doesn't need to be 50, 30, and 20. You could shift maybe to 50, 20, 20, 10. So 50% needs, 20% debts, right? 20% wants, and then 10% investments. You can invest in the premium membership if you want to get that marketing support and the free included ad spend to get your channel or your brand off. If your needs are more than 50% of the income, you also got to change your situation. Is what I would recommend first. If you don't have the means for that, or you're on a 12-month apartment lease, then just wait it out. Maybe look for options later, but maybe see if you need to drive 8 hours each weekend to go visit all your friends and save on gas money a little bit. Things like that. There's still ways to minimize that, or maybe choosing more store brand food versus the name brand stuff. If house in utilities, car, food, and phone are considered your needs, you're doing pretty well. That's typically the standard categories. You could add a few things to this. Obviously, like utilities I added versus just the rent. You could add insurance, whatever it's going to be. And if you're more than 50%, I would allocate from recreation, aka the wants category, and not the debt. Don't take money out of debt to cover the needs, because you need to pay off your debt. So we need to prioritize that. The key takeaways: sign up for Monarch. You need a budget. Mint, whatever it's going to be, NerdWallet, or just do the spreadsheet thing. Right? We can provide a template for that. Just ask for it in the chat. And then start checking your bank app daily to notice the shifts, and start tracking it in the sheet. Ideally, put it in the spreadsheet if you're using that. You'll also be able to see it. If you have these apps, it'll show you the live balances, so it'll be easy to do the math. Just add it up. If it's a couple different accounts, some apps like Monarch let you do that. And then just put it in your journal or put it in the spreadsheet if you're doing that as well to track. Write down your 5 biggest unnecessary expenses in your journal. The other big thing to do: keep a regular audit. Right? Do you need the GameStop, purchase for the new, PS whatever controller, the PS5, right? Or do you need the new 2K game? Or do you need the Netflix subscription? I would start finding, start headhunting different expenses that you can target. And when you start checking that pulse, it's going to be easy, because you're probably going to realize, why do I have 2 Netflix subscriptions or Hulu subscriptions? And they're probably going to be obvious or common sense to just cancel them. So write down what you get out of spending the money there if you really think it's necessary. So again, as we've said before, let's go all the way back. If you go through your bank account and you can start tracking your different expenses, I guess this was on lesson 1. I'm already forgetting things. But if you go through those 10 transactions from lesson 1, you do that again maybe right now, I would write down 5 out of that 10, maybe take the list. And then for any ones that you thought you needed, just justify them, right? So why are you spending the money there? And put it in your head that you have a reason. And if you're thinking too hard about it, you don't have a reason. Write down how that money and experience helps or hurts your goals, right? What could you have otherwise used the money for? And with that said, we'll see you in lesson 3. This was a critical rule. There's a ton of other rules you can use. Again, ask people in the community what they use, as well as asking me on the live sessions. And we can slowly start figuring out your plan. But this is a great one to start with, because it doesn't take a lot of work or math to figure out. And it at least gives you a framework to start basing your life around. Do the math. Look at all your bank accounts. Remember all the accounts you have, because you might be in debt in more ways than you think. And really get a good understanding of if you're over doing good or a little bit behind, and slowly you'll be able to start working on things. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next lesson.